Yeah, sure.
Cool. All right, so I got this ready. Here we go. Let's see. All right. Hey everybody, how's it going? It looks like now we're live. Dan Shinder here. I can't believe January 8th, Elvis's birthday. He would have been 86 today, and I am thrilled to have our first interview of the year. The returning Gavin Harrison, one of my favorite drummers and trumpet players. Wait. I'm in Globe, Arizona. Tell us where you're at, folks, in the chat. Let us know if you have questions for Gavin. Gavin, you're just right outside London, right?
Yeah, I'm in northwest London.
Nice. And you've been there for quite a while, eh?
Yeah, actually, we were lucky. We found this house that I could have a studio in 23 years ago. So there's no reason to move when you can play your drums at home without annoying the neighbors.
Exactly.
Why move?
That's nice. So it's starting to feel like home?
Yeah. Just, I've probably still got boxes in the attic that I haven't unpacked.
I do too.
When we moved here 23 years ago.
Wow.
You never do you? You never actually open all the boxes.
Yeah, you got me beat, because we've been here 4 years last month, and I've got a few things we haven't unpacked. But 23 years, you should go do that stuff. You'll see stuff, as you know, that you forgot you had, of course. Yeah,
it'll be a time capsule.
Yeah, exactly. I've been looking for this. These are the new book I was going to write.
Yeah. Oh, my insulin. Yeah.
So let's see. I want to focus on two things today, but of course you can always talk about whatever you want. And folks, if you're fans of Gavin, feel free to ask anything you want. I'll be checking the chat on the monitor over there and relaying questions and stuff. But I want to talk about how you got mixed up with someone who nicks pineapples. That's one. The other is, of course, the work you've done with Antoine Fafard. So let's start with the Pineapple Thief. And honestly, I'm kind of a new fan to the Pineapple Thief. And my take on the music is, first of all, I love it. I love it. I love Disillusion. Great album. I love all of it. But what I look for in music that I like is stuff that is kind of different from everything else I'm listening to. And while there's certainly reminiscence of different things that honestly I can't put my finger on, so I'm curious to learn from you some of the influences. One of the biggest sensibilities I get from the music of the Pineapple Thief is it's kind of hauntingly romantic in a way. I don't know if I'm painting the right picture, but almost like a film noir kind of feel, and I just find it really great storytelling in the music, in the lyrics, and really in the overall sound. So how did you get mixed up with Bruce, and where did the name come from, if you know that history, and talk about your experience with being a member of the band? Sure.
Well, they contacted, I knew about them because they're on the same label as many things I've done. Right. This label that we have in common, K-Scope Music. So I knew about them. And then 2016, I got a message from Bruce Sword, the singer-songwriter of the band. And he said, look, our drummer has left, and we want to do an album, and the guys at K-Scope are suggesting that you might be a good candidate. And I said pretty much what I say to everyone who invites me to play on something.
Is the first, right?
Well, no, the first thing is really, look, send me the music before we even discuss, availability or deadlines or money or anything like that. I've got to feel something towards your music. It's got to inspire me in some way. Otherwise, it'll just be a job, right? And I'm not interested in being a session guy anymore. Right. I was, a lot in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. And then I gave up being a session guy who would just play anything for money, right? A sort of mercenary character. I mean, I was in a lucky position that I didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking guys who do sessions and play things they don't love for money, because I did it for decades,
Yeah,
right?
it's part of the journey.
That is part of the journey, but I found myself in a lucky position by about 2005, 2006, that I didn't need to do that anymore. So I said to myself, look, I'm only going to do things that I actually like. So people send me tracks, I listen to them, I try to imagine if I could make a meaningful contribution to their music, and not just, okay, well, I can play what your drum machine's doing, so yeah, give me the money and I'll do it. I want to make a meaningful contribution and feel that I connect to their music in a sort of deep way. Now, that means that at least 50% of the things I get sent, I have to say, look, I know I'm not the right drummer for your project. Best of luck with it. It's very well done. The music, there's nothing wrong with the music. It just didn't connect with me. And therefore, I won't be the right drummer for your project. I wouldn't be able to give it, you know, the passion and the sort of justice it deserves. Mm-hmm. You could probably find a better result from a different drummer. Mm-hmm. So if we get past that part, and then we can start talking about, okay, well, when are you hoping I could do it? Because maybe I'm just about to go on tour. And then we can get into budgets and record companies and things like that. So anyway, Bruce sent me a couple of songs, and I immediately liked it. I really liked the first thing he sent me was a song called Final Thing on My Mind, and from the album Your Wilderness, which was the 2016 record. Yeah. And I thought, wow, I really like this. I can already imagine what I'd like to play on this song. Then he sent me a couple of other songs, and I thought, yeah, I'm definitely going to do this. So I had a few chats with him, and he said, look, I love surprises. Do whatever you want, which is very unusual, because sometimes songwriters, they write patterns on their drum machine, and then when you send them what you've played and it's nothing like their drum machine, they get in a real panic because they've heard their demo 1,000 times. Right. And the first time they hear real drums could be a terrible shock. Yeah. So anyway, so Bruce said, do whatever you want. You can even rearrange the songs. If you think this section's too long or too short, or it should be in a different time signature, just tell me and do whatever you like. So I went about it, in a very honest way that I want to do sessions or want to do collaborations in. That it's like, how would I really like to approach this music? All right, I think the song's a bit too fast. I think this section in the middle it'd be nice if it wasn't in 4/4. Maybe I'll chop it into 7/8, your demo, and I'll make a little demo, see if you like that bit. So I did a bit of that. I did a bit of rearranging, and I played lots of drum parts that Bruce perhaps hadn't written on a drum machine. Sometimes I played what he'd written because I thought it was the best creative solution for that section. Mm-hmm. And everything I sent him, he said, oh, yeah, great, I love it, yeah, brilliant. He never once said, yeah, I wasn't sure about that bit or that fill or I don't know, And then I would make more suggestions to him and say, this section, Bruce, it's really building. It would be good if it was twice as long and I could really build it. And maybe you could play a guitar solo over the second half. And so we started a very interactive collaboration that was great fun for me. I mean, they paid me as a session drummer. But after the session was finished, of course, they had the problem of, well, how are we going to go on tour then? Well, we need Gavin, really. So they asked me if I would consider doing a short tour, which was January 2017. And I said, yeah, okay. It was only about maybe 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And I said, you should consider filming it. Because I can see from YouTube you don't have any live gigs that have been nicely filmed and edited and mixed. Yeah. And he said, oh, yeah, that would be a great idea. So we filmed the last show of the 2017 little run that I did. We filmed the show in London, and it was great. I really liked it. I'm always looking for soulmates, musical soulmates who I can connect with and feel a good relationship with. So that's really what, outside of the bands that I'm in, when projects come to me, that's really the criteria is, do I want to be on this music? Could I really contribute something great to this that I would feel proud of? So that's really where the Pineapple Thief thing started.
That's cool. I really love that approach because, well, for lots of reasons. I hear fans or read them comment on posts about other bands saying, oh, this band should this, or this artist ought to do that, or they should. And an artist in any discipline, whether it's music, dance, painting, acting, whatever it is, should do for them first. And I really respect that that's your approach and your own worth ethic that starts with yourself. I went to Your Wilderness first because I knew it was the first album that you played on by then. If I didn't know it was you, I would have said, that's Gavin. Just the work with the hi-hat, the chimes and cymbal work, a lot of things were like, it's totally you. And I love hearing that Bruce gave you that much creative latitude. What was it like having that input? How satisfying was that?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I've worked for lots of people in my time, and some of them give you more freedom than others. And Bruce gave me more freedom, really, than I'd ever done outside of something that's had my name on it, like the partnership that I did with 05 Rick, the thing that I did with Antoine, which we'll speak about in a minute, or my own records. That's got my name on. Obviously, I can do whatever I want.
Right.
So I'm always looking for, good partnerships that we're not competing with each other. And Pineapple Thief are a fantastic group of guys. They don't have egos. There's no kind of bad vibes. They all get on very well. And so it felt like a very happy place to be. And that's, I'm not a complicated person. If I can find a happy musical situation to be in that I feel comfortable doing my thing, well, then I'm happy doing it. I'm probably happier than if I was playing to 100,000 people at Wembley Stadium behind an artist I don't really like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've been in situations where I didn't really love the music, but it was, a big time gig.
Yeah.
And that was all part of being a professional drummer. And as I said, I think around 2005, 2006-ish, I just changed my mentality. I just didn't, when I was growing up and I was hanging out with my dad and he was doing sessions, it was like being a session drummer was like the greatest level I could imagine. You got to play with other session musicians, and normally they're the best players. And that was like the highest level I could think of. But when I did a lot of sessions, it was a large percentage of them were pretty unhappy times. Playing things I didn't want to play, people asking me to play in ways I didn't like.
Yeah.
Very mercenary sort of stuff. It wasn't okay, a small percentage of it was great fun, but I would say more than 50% of it was music I would never ever want to hear or listen to, or artists that I would never go to or want to search out their catalog.
Right.
It was just a job.
Yeah, I was going to say that's when it becomes a job. The difference between having a job and being an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And where did the name The Pineapple Thief come from?
Okay, it comes from a film, and I don't know the name of the film. Maybe someone can fill it in the comments.
Yeah.
Bruce has told this story many times. In 1999, Bruce started the band on his own.
Right, for a couple of years, right?
Couple of years, in his home studio with a drum machine and doing everything himself. And he had the opportunity to release a record, and someone said to him, look, we need what are you going to call it? And he said, oh my God, I don't know. Anyway, so he's watching TV one day and a film comes on, and in the middle of this particular film, a character says, I Can See You, Pineapple Thief. And oh, Pineapple Thief, yeah, great.
There you go.
As you will know, if you're trying to think of a name for something, you type it into the internet, it already exists.
Yeah.
So you're probably going to have to get a unique name. You're going to have to put two words together that might not normally sit together.
Yeah.
Right? Which is like Porcupine Tree.
Yeah.
They're two words that don't fit together. If you want to call your band, Black Velvet, well, you type Black Velvet, there'll be millions of them.
Yeah.
Right?
From thongs to bourbon.
Yeah. Or you type, you think of a name, I want to call my band, Strawberry Chocolate. There'll be a company already called Strawberry Chocolate. Yeah. There'll be, you've got to find a unique name.
Yeah.
If you're going to have a chance of standing out.
Yeah.
And not get lost in the mass of stuff that's out there at the moment. About 10 years ago, I had to form my own publishing company for reasons that I won't bore you with, but because of the royalties that come through Porcupine Tree, we all had to create a publishing company name. So they said, okay, give us a name for your publishing company. And I thought of a few names, and everyone was taken.
Really?
Right? And now, in the 70s, there was a comedy record by an English duo called Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. Dudley Moore went on later to become a film star.
Yeah.
But in the 60s and 70s, they were popular TV comedians, right? They were really, they were an Abbott and Costello. They were, they were really funny guys. And Dudley plays amazing jazz piano.
Yeah.
Peter Cook is a sort of, very imaginative, inventive comedian.
Yeah.
In the 70s, they made a record on Virgin Records where they cursed and swore all the way through it like two guys in a pub. And at the time, it was outrageous. This was there's 3 albums. They called themselves Derek and Clive. And because I went to school in the 70s, me and my friends, we knew every word of these very bad, swear word records.
Yeah.
And one of the sketches, they talk about a character called Squatter Madras. So I called my publishing company Squatter Madras Music.
Nice.
And, for people who know the Derek and Clive records, they're very, very funny, but they are absolutely disgusting for the time.
Yeah.
Now things that, my parents didn't swear. I never heard them use any swear words. And so when my eldest brother, he said, "Hey, come into my bedroom. I've got this thing to play." And he played me this Peter Cook, Dudley Moore, Derek and Clive album. I was about, 10. I've never heard so many cuss words and swearing. And I, as a 10-year-old, I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever heard.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a strange hobby where I think of names and I keep a list. I'm going to read a couple, and you could tell me off the top of your head if you think, oh, no, that's probably taken, or, no, hey, that's a good one. How about Fart Cloud Chasers?
The what?
Fart Cloud Chasers. How about Herschel Goldstein and the Bagel Slingers?
That's good.
Small Town Gossip Hounds. Bathing with a Toaster.
That's good, yeah.
One more. Clyde Finesse-Duchesne's Ding Dong Ditch Porch Crappers Brigade.
And the thing is, you've got to remember, what's that going to sound like when the guy introduces the band?
Exactly.
So I always, we were due to play a club in Turkey, actually around early January, but of course it got cancelled. And the club is called Sold Out.
Oh, funny.
And I said, oh, man, every time someone goes and clicks on it, and it says Pineapple Thief sold out, they go, oh, okay, well, I can't get a ticket then.
Right, what's up with that?
So I said, really, what we should call a band is, ladies and gentlemen, this is the greatest band I have honestly ever heard in my life. right? That's the name of the band. So whoever introduces you, yeah, they have to say that.
That's hilarious. I love that. Before we move on to looking at questions, and folks, I see a lot of comments. Thank you so much. We'll be right to that. I want to play a track for the Pineapple Thief with Gavin Harrison, and this one is, let's pick, we're going to play some of White Mist. This is a really cool song. Check this video out, folks. We'll be right back. God damn, I love that song. I love the fills. That's a really cool song. And I'm not going to tell you folks what album it's from. Just go buy all of them and you'll find it. I want to read some comments. There's a couple funny things here. And when I sort of shortly after I got on Facebook personally, this is even before Drum Talk TV, or shortly before I started Drum Talk TV, you know, you meet people that you don't know personally, but you connect with the people groups you belong to. Well, a friend of yours is one of them, and he's how I found out about you in the very beginning. And then we met like 2 months later. You did the first interview. Burn Webb says, "I'm not helping you move this time." And here's a great question from... Oh, where did it go? Everything's moving. Oh, there we go. Robin Johnson, thanks for watching. Robin, thanks for watching. Everybody, thanks. And he says, "Hi, Gavin. What's the most bizarre experience you've had while playing a gig?" And I think Robin means besides this right here.
Bizarre? Well, you know, when I was playing with Iggy Pop, things would get thrown at the band. I remember getting hit on the arm by a metal ashtray.
Oh, wow.
Why would you throw a metal ashtray at the band? And I got hit. We played a Halloween gig. It might have been, maybe it was San Francisco. And someone threw a Bible that hit me on the head. And then someone threw a wig that landed on the snare drum.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I mean, Iggy Pop gigs, I'm sure they're as wild now, but it was quite wild. A lot of weird sort of stuff would go on. I mean, I don't think people have thrown things at me since those days.
Robert Fripp never threw anything at you? Hey, and that's a good name for a band, Bible in a Wig.
Yeah.
There you go. Thanks for the question. That's funny. Arca Das asks, "Can I please start off with a technical question? How do I get my doubles on my hands and feet really, really smooth, accurate, yet faster? I've tried every possible method, including the methods where the second note is accented, but I don't seem to be making headway past the 150 to 160 BPM in the 16th notes. What am I doing wrong? Do you using middle finger fulcrum to achieve that power and incredible accuracy and speed?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't actually play that fast. Regarding with the feet, I actually never. I can do it, but I never really play doubles with the feet. I only ever play singles. I always start with the right foot, regardless of where I am in the beat or the bar. You know, some guys will say, "Oh no, I always want to start, you know, with the right foot. That has to be on the one, and you play 16s, but you know, you might play a bar of 11-16, and then you're on the left." In bar two. You know, so when my approach to playing double bass drum is that I nearly always only ever play very short spurts, like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 notes in a row. And they'll always start with the right foot, and they'll always be singles because I want it to come out, you know, like a machine gun. If I'm playing heavy music, you know, and there's loud, distorted guitars, you're going to have to slam the bass drum, and there's no way I could do it. Doubles would be like, you know, a quarter of the volume that I could play singles at.
Interesting.
Playing it with your hands, the only thing I really do is, you know, usually quiet sort of 30-second notes. And of course there'll come a tempo where it's just too hard to play it. Now, when I play ghost notes on a snare drum as a double stroke 30-second notes, that feels so different than playing it on a pad.
Right.
And I even hold the sticks differently. When I'm playing on a pad, of course, the pad's got a complete rebound.
Yeah.
You know, the pad doesn't sort of go like that in slow motion. Like if you've ever seen those, there are some videos on the internet.
Yeah.
I think one of them, Mike Mangini's in, where they brought in a camera that goes super slow. And he freaked out when he saw what happened.
Yeah.
He hit the drum, and the whole... the string sort of going like this, in super slow motion. So when you come in with it's not always, the skin is not always where you are predicting it's going to be.
That's true.
When you play on a tabletop, you know the tabletop is not going to move. So when you throw the stick onto the tabletop, it's always in the same place. So you can accurately build up double strokes and single stroke rolls as you can on a pad. But on a snare drum, unless it's cranked up like the marching guys have, which is almost a virtual tabletop. Kevlar heads, snares underneath, cranked up like mad. But if you're playing like a fat rock and roll snare drum, right, the tuning's quite low, playing a double stroke roll on that is not as easy as you think, because it's a moving target.
Yeah.
So you're better off practicing it on a snare. If you're going to play double stroke rolls kind of pretty quiet on a snare drum, it's best to practice it on the snare drum.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I use a different grip on the drums than I do on a pad. And I usually play on the drums, I play a much more sort of Tony Williams grip, where the fulcrum's right at the back.
At the back, yeah.
It's more like that sort of stuff, especially with the left hand. It's kind of closed at the back. If you ever see any videos of me playing, you'll notice that this part, that's where the sound's coming from. So when I rim shot, I'm controlling the vibration of the stick. And that is how you get a certain kind of backbeat sound from a snare drum.
Yeah.
You can't do it with this grip, and you can't get the same sound if you're kind of open. It's a certain sound with a certain hit that gives you that kind of sound. So my grip on the drums is very different to what I do on a pad. And so, you know, the pad stuff really is just working muscles. Normally, if I'm sitting here, I'll put the TV on, or I'll watch I don't know, a comedy show or so, the news or something, and I'll sit here just sort of pretty aimlessly, just kind of doing doubles and singles and different combinations of stuff until I can feel the burn.
Yeah.
You know.
Interesting. Thanks for that answer to a great question. Wow, there's so much stuff here. You're welcome, Robin. Let's see. Let's go with Betsy Ortega asks, overall, what is your favorite part about music? What is it about music that you like overall?
Yeah, that's a big question, really. I mean, it's kind of the thread that goes all the way through my life. Because when I was very, very young, well, as young as I can remember, my dad was always playing music in the house, usually jazz music. Sometimes he would have friends over and they would play. So the house was full of music. And it's sort of part of my soul in a way. I can't imagine life without music. It's such a sort of deep, meaningful thing to me.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I suppose it's escapism. You know, you listen to it becomes a soundtrack to your life. You hear music from that you were listening to 30 years ago, and it transports you back to that time of your life.
Totally. Yeah.
And there's some types of music I hear, and I'm a kid again, you know.
Yeah.
I'm 10 years old in my parents' house, you know, listening to Miles Davis or listening to, I don't know, some jazz records, some big band records. And then all the way through my life, I could probably pinpoint every couple of years an album that really impressed me and I became addicted to. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'd have to really think about it. But every few years, an album would come along that was so important to me, and I got addicted. And as soon as I got up in the morning, I wanted to listen to it. And I listened to it several times. And then I went to bed, and I'm lying in bed. I'd even dream about it. You know, you're walking down the street listening, sort of whistling it to yourself. And, you know, some records I've listened to 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And they've been, and they're still, I love that part. You know, people say to me, oh, what are you listening to now? And, you know, the thing is, when I look at iTunes or what's on my phone, there's so many albums on there that have meant a lot to me in my life at certain points. I just can't help but want to hear it again. It's a sort of an addiction.
I'm the same way, and I think a lot of the stuff I play to is that. Like, I'm still playing this stuff I was playing 40 years ago because I love it, and it took me 40 years to get good at it. I just feel so comfortable, and it means so much to me, you know? It's different than just playing to play. You know, whatever that good reason is, it's like a whole layer beyond that, you know?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks. And let's see. Let me slide around a little bit real quick. Catch up to where I was. I saw something I wanted to get to. Bear with me, folks. Oh, Gregor Houston says, who were some of your early childhood drummers you had for inspiration? I know we talked a little bit about this on the last interview, but rapid fire, like 3 to 5 of your biggest favorite drummers.
One of the first drummers that I didn't realize was influencing me was a drummer called Stan Levy. And we're going back a long way now. And my dad had a record made in 1963. And by the time I was listening to it, it was probably 1970. And Stan Levy was the drummer. He was actually left-handed, I believe.
Oh, wow.
John Guerin. When I was a kid, I listened to John Guerin play. I loved his drumming. Steve Schaefer, who's you know, he's still working now. He's a great drummer. I heard an album in the mid-70s with Steve Schaefer on, and it absolutely knocked me out. And that was before I heard Steve Gadd. some of the early drummers. I mean, some of the early drummers were guys that I actually had met. There was a famous British drummer called Ronnie Verrill, who was actually the drummer of the Muppet Show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Ronnie Verrill was a very famous drummer in the UK. And my dad knew him, and I bumped into him. My dad would take me to sessions and gigs and things. And, of course, by about 1974, I met Simon Phillips.
Oh.
No, actually earlier than that. It was probably, I was about 8 or 9 years old, and Simon was about 13.
Oh, wow.
So I met Simon, and, he was amazing.
Yeah.
He was playing with his dad's band at the time. God, I don't know. I'd have to look back through my really early records to.
That's a great list, though. That's great. And folks, if you haven't heard of any of those drummers, look them up and get familiar. Yeah. This is how we all get exposed to new stuff. Let's take a couple more questions, and then we're going to move on to a whole other topic and show a couple other video clips too. Let's see. Okay, so there's a question here that I think we could do a whole show on with maybe the help of someone like S. Paul Quinn Esquire and people like that. But I'll read it anyways. You can give as short of an answer as you want. But it's a good question. Carlos Clarica asks, how do you organize the aspect of royalties from different bands/albums to have an income in this industry? And of course, that answer is different now than if I would have asked you that 15 years ago or 2 years ago, for that matter.
Well, coinciding around the time that I was talking about earlier on,
yes,
where I wasn't enjoying most of the sessions that I did, I joined Porcupine Tree, and that was the first band where I started getting royalties on the record sales. Royalties on the writing, the publishing, and we haven't played for 10 years now in Porcupine Tree, and I'm still getting royalties from Porcupine Tree in various ways. Some of them are license deals where we license albums to a label.
Right.
Some of them are publishing royalties. Some of them are, like directorship splits.
Yeah.
We are a company. Porcupine Tree Limited is a company, so we can take dividends from the company.
And now, if anything ever gets used for TV, film, a commercial, stuff like that,
Yeah. And then the same with King Crimson. I get royalties from King Crimson, from all the live albums that I've been involved in, from performance royalties. Now, there's about 5 drum pieces which I wrote and co-wrote with the other drummers, which when you play them live, there is a small fee that's given to the writers of the music that you are performing.
Right.
And that's different in every country, and it depends on the size of the venue. If you play in a jazz club in, Dusseldorf, it might be a couple of dollars. You play in a stadium in South America or somewhere like that, it could add up to quite a few $100s.
If you play at my house, my wife will make cookies.
There you go. What better royalties could you want? Some countries like Italy, I believe 20% of the ticket price is assigned to the writers of the songs. So some countries have put a lot more importance on it than others. Now, if you need a collection agency, you've got to stay on top of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So luckily for me, especially this last year, I have been receiving royalties from, different bands and different projects. The project I did with 05 Rick, that still sells. We split the royalties. There's the books that I wrote that are on Alfred. There's the DVDs that are with Hudson.
Yeah.
There's I get a royalty on the snare drum that I designed for Sonar drums.
Yeah.
I get royalties on the sticks, the signature sticks I designed for Vic Firth. So there's a large field, and some of it might not be a lot of money, but when you put it all together, you can actually survive without having to really do anything. Yeah. And that's the beauty of getting involved in bands where you are involved in the record deal and you're involved in the writing and the share of the publishing. Yeah. No one ever explained that to me for the previous 30 years to me joining Porcupine Tree, where, you just played as a session drummer, you got your money, whether it was playing live or on a record, and that's it. Yeah. You don't get any more money. Yeah. Now, if you play on a hit, there is a thing called PPL in the UK, and it's called different things in different countries. And that's a very small amount of money that's assigned to the performers of the music that's getting played on the radio. And so if you've played on a few hits, it will add up to something. Yeah. If you've never played on a hit, it will add up to micro pennies.
Yeah. Interesting. So, thanks for sharing that. Thank you very much. What a great question. Well, there's so many great questions here. But I want to move on and talk about another topic, and we'll see if we can revisit this. And I'll send you the link. Maybe you can go through them and pop in some answers. But it also means with all this overflow, we'll have to schedule another interview sometime. So you sent me a couple of videos, and we posted those today to promote the interview. And I love this stuff. Talk about the work that you're doing and have done with Antoine, and how that came together and how you would describe it, and then we'll play 2 bits.
So Antoine, he invited me to play on one of his albums. He's a Canadian bass player and composer. And I think about 7 or 8 years ago, he did an album where every track was a different drummer. And Simon Phillips was there, and Dave Weckl was on it, and Chad Wackerman, and I can't remember all the names. But anyway, he invited me to play a song called Peace for Four. Mm-hmm. And I did it as a session. He contacted me through the internet, through Facebook or something. I really liked the song. I did the session, and that was that. About 4 years later, he contacted me again and said, look, I'm doing this experiment. I've written these tunes for an orchestra. Would you put the drums on? And I said, oh, yeah, that sounds really interesting. So he sent me the tracks. They're really great tracks. And we did 2 tracks, with the orchestra. Now, we didn't know what to do with it after that. It would have been incredibly expensive to do a whole album of orchestra tracks. Yeah. That would probably require a record company and some serious finance behind it. Mm-hmm. Then last year, 2019, early or maybe late 2018, Antoine got back in touch with me and said, look, I've been writing some stuff for string quartet. Do you think that would be good fun to put drums on? And I said, oh, yeah, I like a challenge, and I like it when it's something that you feel like you're getting into a new area of music that doesn't normally have drum set on. Right. So I started to work on the string quartet music. Then we added some marimba. I played a little bit of marimba. We added some electric violin, and we added some other stuff. But the core of it really is string quartet. And it was great. And Antoine said, look, I'd like to do this project with you rather than just pay you as a session musician. Would you be interested in doing it as a collaboration? I said, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'd love to do that. And we have got some more things planned.
Oh, great.
I like, if someone asks you to play on an R&B track or a disco track, there's so much sort of history of what the drums have done in that genre of music. It's hard not to be swayed and influenced by that. Right. But when you're talking about drum kit on orchestra or drum kit on string quartet, chamber music, well, then you feel like you're sort of walking on virgin snow.
Yeah.
that's really interesting. I like that kind of thing. I did an album with a Russian classical pianist called Gleb Kalaydin, and that was fantastic. He just sent me his piano tracks, which are very classical, a little bit progressive. And so I just, there were no demo drums. He just said, play whatever you want, whenever you want. You don't have to play all the way through. There's plenty of times I don't play.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic challenge to try to think, what can you play with classical piano?
Yeah, let's give everyone a sample. I love that. This is, for the first snippet, we're going to play Pair of a Perfect Four. Let's do some of this. Check this out, folks. Great stuff. Gavin, when you were younger, like we're the same age, we're both 38, and when I was younger, I played in concert band and orchestra in junior high / middle school, whatever it's called today. When I was like 13, 14, 12. Did you play? Because I hear some stuff that fits perfectly if it was played like that, not on a drum kit. So I'm curious if you have a history of that music when you were younger.
Very little. I did play in the school orchestra, but it was absolutely minimal. And then I played in a local orchestra, a youth orchestra. That was really my only experience at that time of orchestral music.
Cool. I want to give them one more snippet. Then we'll take a couple more questions. And then, folks, instead of me asking what I usually ask at the end of every interview, which is, what do you like to do when you're not playing music? Because I asked that 2-3 months ago when we did this. I have a different question for Gavin. Oh, okay. So let's go to Proto Mundi. Yeah, check this out. I love that 8-string bass, by the way. Check this out, folks. Our fans are exactly like I am. We're greedy. We want all of it. So go buy it. That's just beautiful music is all I could say. Great playing. Great sounds, too. The drums just sound so good. Your whole setup sounds good. The orchestra sounds good. And you guys are a really good collaboration team. It's really great stuff. Looking forward to seeing what else comes from that. I think what we'll do, because we've got about 13 minutes, I'm going to ask you a few questions, kind of a rapid fire thing, and then we'll take as many questions as we can fit back in. There's some really good questions here. So before, like I said, I asked you, what do you like to do when you're not playing music? And basically, your answer was, I don't like to do anything. So I've changed this around, and I've got what looks like about 10 questions, and I like you to answer them as quickly as possible without giving them much thought. All right? Here we go. No trick questions, though, don't worry. What's your favorite movie?
Being There.
Ooh, that's... Yeah. How about favorite TV show?
The Larry Sanders Show.
Oh, cool. How about your favorite villain, not including Robert Fripp? I'm kidding. I tease about Robert.
Favorite villain? Oh, God. Struggling to think of one. I don't know. What's he called? The big guy with the gold teeth in the James Bond film.
Jaws.
Jaws, right.
Jaws. Yeah, a good one. Favorite beverage?
Favorite beverage? Well, I used to like drinking White Russian, but I don't drink anymore. The last 2 years, I haven't drunk at all.
I stopped too. Yeah, water is my go-to. I drink more water than anything. In fact, it used to be juice. I had to stop drinking juice because I was such a fruitaholic and juiceaholic. I have diabetes now, as of a year and a half ago. So water, water, water. Favorite food? Favorite food?
Well, Indian food. If I had a choice, yeah.
Do you like the heat?
No, especially no. I don't go for the super hot stuff.
Okay. How about what is at the top of your list of places to go that you've never been? And someone who's traveled around the world playing music, I'm real curious about the answer to this.
I'd love to go to Iceland.
Ooh.
Yeah, there used to be a drum festival there, or maybe there still is. And the guy used to write to me every year, and every year he'd write to me when I was on tour and say, "Oh man, I can't come. I'm going to be on tour." They always do these drum festivals like September, October, November, which is the prime time for touring. Yeah. And he asked me for about 5 years in a row, and I couldn't make it. And then he stopped asking me.
So here's a side question since you brought up Iceland. Why, for the love of whatever we all believe in, why on the map is Iceland green and Greenland is white?
Good question.
What's up with that? That's bugged me since I was a little kid. What drummer who has passed on in life would you love to spend a day with?
Love to spend a day with?
A drummer who's no longer with us. You still get to be alive, though.
Oh, right, okay. That's a very good question. Well, I tell you who I'd love to spend some time with is Louis Bellson. I spent an afternoon with him once when I was a kid, and he was the kindest, most gentle, supportive, encouraging person. And
that's nice.
I sat on his kit, and we took some photos. He was working with my dad in this nightclub, because he was married to a singer called Pearl Bailey.
Yeah.
Louis Bellson was. And so Pearl Bailey was playing a month at this cabaret club in London. My dad was in the house band. And so when he knew Louis Bellson was coming, he brought me along. He also brought Simon Phillips on another day, because Simon, he knew Simon through Simon's dad. And he, God, what was I, about 13? Simon must have been about 18 or 19. Yeah. And I didn't even know this till recently, but my dad went round to Sid Phillips' house, picked up Simon, took him to this club to meet Louis Bellson and sit next to him, and then brought him home again. And I didn't know that story till, probably about 2 years ago.
Oh, wow. How funny. What a great story. What's the best advice you've ever taken?
The best advice. I think the best advice, when there was a few kids of my age, and we were hanging around, and we used to go to the BBC studio to watch this fantastic drummer called Paul Brodie. He was the drummer in the big band. And we were saying, hey, look, we've got these Billy Cobham licks and we can play these Steve Gadd licks. And he said to us, guys, it's all great, but work on your timing and work on your reading, right? All these licks are great things, but if you want to get employment, you've got to work on your timing, you've got to work on your reading.
Great.
And I came away thinking, yeah, you know what, he's right.
That's awesome. So my son is monitoring this. He's our associate producer. I'm just going to tell him we're going to go over just a little bit. If you're okay with that, Gavin, so we can take a couple questions. Cool. And then, Steve, I'll chop this up so we can put it elsewhere. Okay. 2 more questions. What's your best advice to give?
Well, what I say now is work on your timing and work on your sound, right? They're the 2 things that everyone in the band is going to notice. No one gives a crap about your go-go bell solo and your double bass drum, this, that, and the other. Everyone in the band would love the drummer to have better time and a better drum sound. And awesome. You can do a lot about both of those things. Don't think that great timing is something you're born with, or it's a freak of nature that you've got a good drum sound. You can learn it all and you can work on it all. And those 2 things alone will really, really, make a very noticeable difference to everyone.
That's great advice. Last question, then we'll take a couple more or so from the audience. What is your Stuck on an Island album? And who's the drummer, just in case people don't know?
Well, actually, they're 2 albums and they're connected.
Okay.
They're both by a trumpet player called Art Farmer. And the drummer is Steve Gadd on both records, but they're very different records. One of them is called Cruel Space, and it's the most futuristic album. It was made in 1977, and it's got Will Lee on bass. Oh. It's quite funky. Gadd's playing he's doing all that sort of double time paradiddle stuff between the snare drum and the hi-hat, but he's playing it with brushes.
Oh, wow.
And so all the ghost notes sound even more amazing because he's doing it with brushes. I saw it. It was on, I think it's on iTunes, and you could buy it for like $1.99. It was a criminally low amount of money.
Yeah.
You've got to hear this record. Art Farmer. It's called Cruel Space.
I'm going to write it down.
And the other album, which is from, I think, the year before, it might be 76, is Art Farmer Jim Hall. Jim Hall's a jazz guitar player. Mm-hmm. And that's a much more swing, like modern swing record.
Cool.
It's an absolute masterclass of taste from Steve Gadd. Awesome. Minimalism. It's just, if I just put the headphones on and turn that record up, I'm transformed. I'm transported to another world. I've listened to those 2 records probably the most of any 2 records in my life. And they're very different sides of Steve Gadd, but they're really, really the 2 deepest Gadd experiences you can have.
I've got to get them. Now, did you come across those albums at the time they came out or later in life? At the time they came out. That's great.
Because the Art Farmer Jim Hall is called Big Blues.
Okay.
And Art Farmer Cruel Space. They're both CTI albums. They're like 76, 77 or 77, 78. And Gadd is absolutely in his prime. He's just on fire on these records. And a lot of it is what he doesn't play, the spaces he leaves, and the minimalism in which he plays sometimes is just a masterclass.
That's great. Thanks for answering all those. And if you have just a few more minutes, we'll take a couple more questions.
Sure.
Great. Thanks for being patient, everybody. Now, here's a comment and a question from Kevin Shepard. He says, "Hi, Gavin. I had the great honor of meeting you in Boston when you were touring with Pineapple Thief, and before that at a clinic in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, years ago. I meant to ask you in Boston, but I forgot. I was wondering if Steven Wilson had approached you at all to play on any of his solo stuff besides his first album. I would love to hear you two collaborate again together."
He has asked me, and he has in the past asked me to go on tour. You know, I played on his first solo album when we were still in Porcupine Tree. After that, the timing of it never worked out, and sometimes I didn't think it was a good idea. You know, we're buddies. There's no bad blood between us. Yeah. We're really good friends, and I would help him out if I could. But his tours were quite extensive, and I was already involved in other projects where I just couldn't drop it.
Yeah.
And then there were times, you know, when I was in King Crimson, I just never had that amount of time to devote to going out and doing that kind of work with Steve. And I think it would have been, and I told him this at the time, I said it would be a very weird dynamic for me and you, Steve, having been band members in a band together,
yeah,
and then the feeling of me working for you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would be very comfortable with it. It's one thing doing an album, you know, and him sending me the tracks and me playing, but going on tour where I'm working for him would be a very weird dynamic for our friendship, because we were always kind of equal bandmates.
And maybe a weird perception for fans knowing you from the band, you know.
And it's like, you know, if you've got a friend and then you want to employ that friend to do a job, you know, paint your house or, you know, do some landscape gardening, it's very weird sort of talking about money with friends and what are you going to pay me? And so we never went there.
I got to talk to my wife about this because she's always put me to work. Oh, but wait, she doesn't pay me. Never mind. Problem solved. Let's see. Irina, how are you? Irina Sadakova. Irina Sadakova says, do you plan some kind of online gig with the Pineapple Thief? That would be great. As so many artists are starting to stream gigs and things like that because we still can't get back to where we were.
Okay, all I can say at this moment is be careful what you wish for.
I love it. Oh, I can't wait to hear about this. And when we are able to hear about this, we'll definitely have to talk about it. Let's see. Let me just scan through folks real quick. Julie Odler, how are you? She's in Bosnia-Herzegovina by way of America. She says, thank you for all this great music to buy. That's the way to do it. You know, I've never downloaded free music. I've never downloaded free music. I'm just saying, folks, I've never done that. I stole some vinyl, though, but no, I'm kidding. How about, let's go with, okay, I don't know what the oh, yes, I do know the context. Sayumi Awataki asks, do you have recommended songs to practice for beginners? And Sayumi, keep in mind that Gavin doesn't know what style of music you play or whatever, but answer that however you like, of course, Gavin. Some songs to recommend to play to for beginners.
I mean, anything that you like, you know, music that you like, you're probably not listening to Frank Zappa or something super complicated. Things that have got nice melodies, you know, pop music that you enjoy. Mm-hmm. You don't have to get, you know, when I was a kid, I was playing to my dad's jazz records. They were small band jazz records. They weren't fast. They weren't furious. My dad had some Buddy Rich big band records. I couldn't play to them. They were too fast, too hard, too many. You know what I mean? I just wanted to play time.
Yeah.
I just wanted to play time along to the record, feel like I was involved in the music, and enjoy the music whilst playing in time with it. And a lot of the things that I play to, when I'm sitting on the drums, just, you know, having fun, I'll put on very simple music, you know, some very simple kind of funk music or, you know, Luther Vandross or something. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and I'm just playing time, just trying to make the time feel good. And I'm enjoying the songs and I'm enjoying his singing. You know, it just felt like fun. It's important to have fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what music's all about. Thank you for that advice. Two more quick questions. A lot of thank yous, a lot of I love your music. Tom Monaghan? Yeah, sorry, Tom, if I'm butchering that. Tom Monaghan says just ordered Crawl Space. So see, you're having a wonderful influence on the scoundrel Drum Talk TV fans. Just kidding, folks. Here we go. Hi, Dan. This is from our... Oh, okay. We'll make this the last question. And then I'll send Gavin the link, and maybe Gavin, you make some time to peek and just see if there's any easy ones to answer this way, typing. Cool. Marcel Lightning Dubé says, hi, Dan and Gavin. What did you do to figure out the most difficult song on drums you ever picked up? I listened to Air Blower and can't figure it at the moment. There's so much going on. So basically, yeah, what was one of the most difficult songs you ever... And I want to put a condition on that song, on that question, sorry. Not something that someone asked you to play as an artist, but as a musician learning and for your own enjoyment and the craft, what did you pick out to make that was the most difficult thing you ever learned?
I did try to play the Black Page, Frank Zappa's infamous piece.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine bought me as a birthday present in, I think, 1984. He bought me the sheet music. You could buy it directly from Frank Zappa. So somewhere in the house, I've got the proper sheet music from Frank's company. And of course, I'd never seen anything like it. It is a nightmare. And so, but I could understand it. If you can understand it, you can play it. And coincidentally, at the same time, a keyboard player, progressive keyboard player called Dave Stewart, who I was friends with, he lent me his Lindrum. He had the first Lindrum.
Wow, I remember those.
So I put the tempo on full, so I'd get the finest amount of quantization available. And then I programmed the Black Page into his Lindrum, one bar at a time.
Wow.
As accurately as I could. I could send you that, Dan, actually. I've got an MP3 of my Lindrum programmed Black Page from 1984.
Can you edit it with a video of you playing to it at the kit?
No.
I would love it. I would love that. Wow.
So,
this is as difficult as drumming gets, I think. It's way out there.
I was very interested in hearing how could you accurately play some of these rhythms against a click? Ooh, how could I accurately hear what, I don't know, 11/3 sounds like? Because that's the rhythm that, you know, you just don't hear ever, apart from specialist music such as the things that Frank Zappa did. So I programmed the whole piece. It probably took me, like 3 weeks, one bar at a time. And then I could play it back at any tempo. I could loop one bar and hear a 4/4 click. So I could keep going over the same bar until I understood where all the notes were. So it was quite an interesting way to examine how intricate and difficult some of that notation was on the Black Page. I haven't tried to play it, well, probably since about 1985.
Very interesting. And very interesting. Go ahead.
I've got the MP3. I found the cassette that I put, you know, I had to hand back the Lindrum to Dave Stewart, so I recorded it onto a cassette. And I found the cassette a few years ago, and then I got it onto my computer. So I have got an MP3 of that performance.
Amazing. That might be the most interesting and useful use I've ever heard of the Lindrum itself. And for those of you who are too young to know and don't know the history of electronic drums, a Lindrum was basically the first sort of drum machine / electronic drums. It had little square rubberish pads. It was a giant piece of machinery and like an almost cream manila plastic shell or something, if I remember right. and it was like a drum machine slash sequencer slash play in real time and
Yeah.
programming. It was pretty amazing piece of device. Didn't that
It
come
was
out in
huge.
like 80-ish? 81?
Yeah, and it was heavy.
Yeah.
And it cost about, well, probably close to $9,000
Yeah.
when it came out. It was £5,500, and it's like about so deep,
Yeah.
and it's heavy, and you've got all these little sliders and switches. But once you understand how to program it, which Dave Stewart very kindly drew me a sort of cheat sheet on how to program it, then I had to figure out, well, how can I program things like 11/3 and stuff like that. But I understood it, but, I certainly couldn't play it, before I programmed it in the Lin, and I could listen to a bar with an absolute 4/4 click. Because when you do it where you play the hi-hat with your left foot, of course, you speed up and slow down all over the place with your left foot. Your left foot isn't a metronome.
Right.
And so I was very interested to hear what it sounded like played, as accurately as possible.
I'd love to hear that. That's great. Well, Gavin, thank you so much for, number one, taking time to spend with us and share your wisdom. And thank you also for being the first interview of 2021, which hopefully is going to be a much better year for everybody. And I also want to thank everybody for tuning in, whether you watched it on the live or are watching it a month or 3 years later on the archive. And watch for more stuff if you are watching this live or within the next few days. On January 13th, Wednesday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern U.S. times, is Cindy Blackman is going to have her first full-length interview with me. I interviewed her 2 years ago at the NAMM show. It was just, those things were pretty quick. So we're going to delve way back into her beginnings and everything. So join us for that. I got a whole whiteboard full of names and every. Oh, here, I'll show you real quick. There. Those are a lot of the new guests right there. So we'll announce them as they come. Gavin, thanks a lot. Hang on the line. And thank you, everybody, so much for following what we do here at Drum Talk TV. Stay safe.